So we went over, we were searching the area between Clifton and Andros. And because I had a twin-engine airplane that was faster and had more range, we did the southern part of the tongue of the ocean. And the smaller private planes from the Flying Club did the northern part. There was a guy working for Z&S called Kirby Brooks. He was an announcer at Z&S. And Kirby was an avid pilot. And he actually found the boat on a line between Clifton Pier and Fresh Creek, and a little bit closer to Andros than to Nassau. But Kirby didn't have enough fuel to sit there and look at the boat while waiting for the police to come and tow it in. So I went up and replaced Kirby, and he went back to Nassau. And Mike and I flew around this boat for the longest time. Said, Paul, I gotta go down there, see if my brother's okay. You gotta fly low. So here's the man who's terrified of flying. So we go low enough to he could almost shake hands with his brother. And that made him feel better. So we went back up to altitude, and he says, we gotta go down there and check on him, make sure he's still okay. So we did this low flying, and I love low flying. Probably 3 or 4 times. And he said to me again, the 5th time, he said, Paul, let's go down and look at him again. The truth of the matter is, I couldn't find him. I'd lost them. I didn't dare tell Mike I'd lost his brother. But when you're looking for a boat, particularly the sea is rough, every wave breaking, every whitecap looks exactly like the boat you're looking for. So even when you know the boat is right there under you, it's possible to actually lose sight of it. Which emphasizes the difficulty of the pilots looking for any boat. First of all, they don't know exactly where to look. And they fly along and you see wave after wave after wave, and you swear it's a plane, you fly to it, it's a wave. Anyway, I did find Mike's boat, and the police had come. We went back to Windsorfield to get fuel, because there was no fuel at Oaksfield. When we took off from Oaksfield to go to Windsorfield, Mike's sitting there. He wouldn't look out of the window, but when the emergency was on, he was superb. Another flight I took part in was a search for Marcus Bethel. Now, most of you probably know who Marcus Bethel was. He had Bethel Brothers Funeral Home. And Marcus was a private pilot, and very, 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 very careful pilot, very aware of weather. I still cannot believe that Marcus was out flying on the day that he flew to Georgetown, and he never made it back to Nassau. And the air wing of BASRA, really went full out trying to find Marcus. I don't know how many planes we had out there. And it was bad weather. There was a strong northeasterly wind, and there was nothing but whitecaps. And I'm sure each and every pilot probably saw Marcus 50 times and flew towards him and found there was nothing but wave breaking. Unfortunately, we never did find Marcus Bethel. Back in 1963, the Pyfrom brothers, that's Gene Pyfrom's father and Gene Pyfrom's uncle, left Nassau in a single-engine float plane, overloaded with lumber, strapped to the floats, to build something in Eleuthera, and they never made it. BASRA pulled out all the stops, and everybody was looking for them, and we were finding nothing. The reason I mentioned this particular case was because of Finley Key that you talked about earlier. To fly from Nassau to Governor's Harbor, you go right over Finley Key. And I was flying a Bahamas Airways DC-3 that particular day, and we were asked to look for any sign of this airplane. And all the earlier flights and all the later flights in that area had to look as well. And we could see nothing. And the water around Finley Key is not just shallow, it's almost no water at all. And obviously anything sitting on the bottom in that area was going to show up immediately. There was nothing there. But Al Hall, who was another Bahamas Airways pilot, had flown over Finley Key on the morning flight and thought he saw something in the water. And didn't really pay much attention to it, because we didn't know this plane was missing. Because of that, BASRA decided to search in the Finley Key area. We flew over and over and over and couldn't see a thing. Finally, they sent out several boats and a number of divers. They towed these divers behind the boats, and the water was anywhere sort of from 1 foot to 4 foot deep. And they finally found the wreckage at the bottom, but we couldn't see it from the air. I just wanted to emphasize the work of the air wing, but overall the work of BASRA, because the air wing is just a part of BASRA. Even though BASRA wasn't looking for airplanes, we were looking for boats and airplanes. I cannot think of BASRA without thinking of Ben Astorita. And he deserves all the credit one can give him. I've just about run out of things to say about the air wing. Does anybody have any questions about it? No? Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much. One thing there came to mind is when I talk to persons who are looking to purchase a boat, do anything with a boat, I know the difficulty, as Paul mentioned, of searching for a blue and white boat in a blue and white ocean. It's insane. You know, so I would encourage red bottom paint. It actually has more copper, and a red bimini, and you would be spotted. There's a reason that life jackets are orange. You know, there's a reason, you know, the Coast Guard have a stripe on the bow. There's a reason that the RNLI lifeboats are orange superstructure. The BASRA boats are orange. You know, I was in Bournemouth at the lifeboat conference, and they took us out in the waters out there, and we didn't know it, but all the lifeboat agencies from all over Europe had sent a boat over, and they were coming out. As they were coming over the horizon, the first boat, the German boat's white with an orange stripe. Most of the others are white with some orange, but the RNLI boats have a lot of orange, and these were easy. They were all together in a line, but you could distinguish the orange RNLI lifeboats way ahead of all the other boats. So just almost done here with this one. On the international scene, BASRA continues to attend conferences. I and the Commodore attended the International Lifeboat Federation conference in Cape Town, and then the International Maritime Rescue Federation, which was formerly the ILF, conference in Gothenburg, Sweden. But you know, they're big time conferences and a little technical, and whilst it's good to keep in with everybody, what I feel is much more appropriate are the Caribbean Search and Rescue conferences held in Puerto Rico or in Miami, and generally funded by U.S. Coast Guard or Northcom. And they bring in all of the volunteer search and rescue organizations from the Caribbean, many of them who are set up. BASRA was the original one, and many of them are set up in BASRA's structure. Virgin Islands Search and Rescue and Turks and Caicos Rescue Organization especially. We have a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Coast Guard and a memorandum of intent with the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. And as a result of this, the Auxiliary sent instructors to BASRA to train. I think 11 of us did the course in what was called then the America's Boating Course, a safe boating effort between the U.S. Power Squadron and the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. And we flew in persons from Freeport, and so that they were trained. Once again, mainly aimed at the youth, but just feel that prevention is the way to go. We recently purchased a new fast response vessel. This one actually has a cabin. The original Sentry was open and wet and pounded you a bit. This one's much more comfortable. Okay.